everybody, my name is Rachel and welcome to my channel Kalanati. Today, as you can tell from the title of this video, it's time to talk about 2016 reading goals, or maybe I should call this the extremely long list of things that Rachel would like to do but doesn't exactly want to call goals. We're gonna call them guidelines or something soft and nebulous like that. I literally have 9 things to talk about in this video, so I apologize if this is gonna be really long. I know sometimes long videos are not the best to watch all the time. My experience with 2015 reading goals made me really struggle with what I wanted to do in 2016. I enjoyed the goals that I set for myself in 2015. I really enjoyed some of the challenges, and it taught me some lessons about not taking goals too seriously. I may have said this before in a couple of my 2015 goal updates, but I'm the type of person that if I say I'm going to do something, it doesn't really matter what it is, but if I say I am going to do something, I will attempt to bend heaven and earth to make it actually happen. I think it's some sort of weird, I'm taking this too seriously about my integrity or something like that, but I struggle with this a lot, and sometimes I have to purposefully make myself not be specific about what I'm going to do, or not even tell anybody what I'm going to do, because otherwise this part of my personality takes over and it can really mess up how much I enjoy doing something. The only real example from 2015 is my reading list. I set a list of like 54, 55 books I wanted to read in the year, and it was really fun to read a bunch of those books. By like halfway through the year, I started to get this sort of sense of panic that I might not read all that many books on that list, and I spent a lot of time prioritizing those books over things that I think in the moment I actually wanted to read more. And I just don't think this is something that I want to repeat in 2016. For my own sanity and enjoyment, it's really fun to make lists and try to read those things. That's how I do a lot of my reading stuff. I make a list and I try to read it. I don't call them TBRs, I usually don't share them, but I usually have an idea of what I want to accomplish with my reading, and it's usually in list format somewhere. But I'm not gonna redo that in 2016. So instead, I have these things. Number 1, this is not actually a reading goal, this is a channel goal, and that is to caption more of my videos. I started doing this back in June, I think. I was really good at it for a couple of months, and then I totally fell off the wagon. And part of that is that it takes a long time to caption videos, and when I do 3 videos a week, and at least 1 video per week, my weekly wrap-up is more than 10 minutes. That's a lot of time spent captioning. I don't know how to solve this problem. Do I just make more time for it? Do I make fewer videos? Do I try even harder to make short videos? I don't know. But I really want to make this probably the only real goal that I want to do in 2016 is caption more of my videos. There are a lot of reasons why captioning is good. I think the number 1 is it just makes your videos more accessible to everybody, but also it gives a text, a searchable, indexable text version of your video. Like a search engine can't index and figure out what's inside of your video unless there's text there. So people can find your video based on what you actually said rather than what was just in the title of the video or in the description box. And I think that's a really cool idea. Accessibility and more findability, I'm down with these things, so I just need to make this happen. Number 2, every year I set my Goodreads challenge to 150 books. I don't do less than that. I never bump up my goal higher than that. Should I reach it? I usually do reach that goal. I think I've blown it out of the water the last 2 years, but I just set it to 150 books and call it good, and I'm gonna do that again this year. Number 3, I finally want to get back to my read all the Hugo and Nebula best novel winners project. This is something that I started doing back in 2013. I've read a whole boatload of the winners. I've also DNF'd and skipped some of them, but I really enjoyed doing this, and I almost completely stopped doing it in 2015. I just had so many other things going on, and I really missed doing it. I've gotten to the point now where a lot of the ones I have left to read are from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and that's sort of like classic vintage sci-fi and fantasy that I really want to start reading. I really want to know more of the history of the field and some of those really famous works that are, you know, winners of these awards. And doing this project, reviving this project, will help me get to those books as well, so multiple birds with one stone. Number 4 is to read my unread books in a timely fashion. I would like to get to a point where I'm slowing down my acquisition of books enough that I can read all my books as I get them, but I think the most feasible end goal for this guideline is that I shouldn't have unread books hanging around for more than a year. I will read them within a year of getting them. This is something that I actually achieved some years ago, so I do think that for my reading pace and my acquisition pace, it is doable and shouldn't stress me out too much. Number 5 is to continue using the library and interlibrary loan as much as possible. This is also part of slowing down my acquisition of books and not being tempted to buy books I haven't read yet, and then I don't know if I'm gonna like them. I feel really guilty when I buy books and then I don't like them. It feels like a waste of your money and your time. I worked for an hour of my life and I gave it away for a book that I didn't care about. I don't want to feel that way. And I think it is really important to support libraries. I have access to 2 public library systems. I have multiple ways of getting to interlibrary loan books. I have many friendly librarians who want to help me out, and the only thing I need to do to make this work is be patient. My libraries don't always have everything available right away, especially new books. They don't get them for 3 to 4 months sometimes. An interlibrary loan takes a while. You have to be patient and wait for that book to come 2 months after you requested it. So patience, discipline, use the library more. Number 6 is a continuation of what I just said. It's to not buy books I haven't read yet. My number 1 book buying rule for so many years has been, thou shalt not buy books you haven't already read and loved, and I broke this rule so much in 2015. I think a lot of that is booktube pressure. This pressure really got to me around September of 2015 to the point where I just shut down my buying almost completely. I have bought very few books in the last 3 months, and most of the ones I've gotten have been pre-orders. I just did not like the way that I was feeling all of a sudden, and my reaction to that kind of thing is just to cut it off completely. Just stop it. 100% stop it. And you know what? After 3 months, I feel a lot better. I feel like I really don't have that pressure anymore, and I want to stick with that. Don't buy books unless I've already read them. This is not going to be a hard and fast rule. I'm obviously going to break this rule at some point. Guideline number 7 is to continue reading short fiction. There's not much to say here. I started reading short fiction really for the first time in 2015. I've really enjoyed it. It does take some dedication to set aside time to read short fiction rather than novels, especially when you're constantly feeling like you want to add one more book to the list of books you read in the year. Can I read one book or one magazine issue? You have to prioritize what you want to do, and this is something that I do want to prioritize because I really have enjoyed reading short fiction, and I've found it to be very worthwhile to set time aside for that. My 8th guideline is probably where my heart really lies as a reader. I'm a backlist reader. I have been for a very long time. It wasn't really until the last 2 years that I was very aware of new releases. I used to go to the library and just randomly pick things off the shelves, and usually they were old, unheard of books. And the wonderful thing about BookTube and just being part of a community of readers is that you know so much more about the books coming out now. It's a great feeling. It's just you feel part of the vitality of the field and the community when you know what's coming out and you know what all of your favorite authors are doing in the moment and everything. And it's easy to get really wrapped up in that. It's fun to get really wrapped up in that. And yet, I really miss just picking random things that I have never heard of before, or reading them and talking about them. So I would like to challenge myself a little bit to go find some old, unheard of, underhyped books and read more of them, because why not? We don't all have to be reading the same things. I would like to diversify my reading. I always want to diversify my reading a little bit more, and this is how you do it, or at least that's how I think I'm going to do it. And finally, guideline number 9 is a combination of two things that I started doing because of my 2015 goals, and that is to keep rereading books. I still have my shelf on Goodreads of childhood favorites that I want to reread. I put a small dent in that in 2015, and I went off and reread other things that weren't even on that list. It was really fun. It is super fun to compare your adult perception of the world and the reading experience in a particular book with everything that you felt and knew as a child. And sometimes you're super disappointed when you reread a book, and sometimes you just relive the magic and go, oh my god, my childhood was amazing. So you just never know what you're gonna get. It's partly terrifying, partly exhilarating in a way, and I want to keep doing that because I enjoyed it a lot in 2015. And the other part of this is I would like to continue tracking my progress in reading and finishing book series. I'm not saying I'm going to finish all the series that I started. That's not an achievable goal as far as I'm concerned. There are so many of them. I read science fiction and fantasy. The series never end. They keep coming. Every time you pick up a book, you realize it's the first book in a series or it's the 10th book in a series. But I started actually paying attention in 2015 to the series I was in the middle of, the series that I had just started, and what I had finished. And yeah, my rate of finishing a series is much lower than my rate of starting a series, but I like knowing where I am, and I do think it is possible to stay on top of the series that I really enjoy the most and not just the ones that I read occasionally. So a guideline to keep this in my mind when I need it. That's a lot of stuff. I may have to cut some of those, but not now. I'll let things shake out in the year and see what really happens. But if any of these sound good to you, if you have anything you want to say about my 2016 reading goals, please comment down below. And if you have any reading goals of your own that you want to talk about, please share them down below. I would love to hear them. Thank you guys for listening to me ramble, and I'll be back eventually with another video. And until then, bye.